All righty, Pickle. Let's get into it, and let's start with Math Tuesday.
Math Tuesday,
where we like to dig into the numbers. And I want to talk a little bit about career records. And
we like records.
It is, I think, in Texas high school football, college football to a certain extent, the career records are, in a lot of ways, a product not only of greatness, obviously, but also of context.
Yeah.
In the sense that, we'll get to it in a minute, but like the state's all-time leading passer is Grant Gunnell. Grant Gunnell threw for more than 16,000 yards in his career there at Houston St. Pius X. The UIL record is held by Hunter Lyle of Booker, who threw for 1,400 yards or 14,000 yards in his career. Both of those guys started for 4 years. Is Grant Gunnell the greatest high school football quarterback in Texas history? I think he was pretty darn good. I don't know that I would put him number one. But a lot of it was just basically, he started for 4 years, or played significantly as a freshman. I don't know if he started, but he certainly played significantly as a freshman. And he was in pass-happy offense.
Yeah.
It's kind of offense that's going to give him the opportunity to throw the ball around. The same thing goes for running backs and receivers as well, in the sense that you are kind of at the mercy not only of your scheme, but also how quickly you can find the field. Because, look, freshmen are pretty rare, I would say, in Texas high school, but at least at the big school level.
At the big, yeah.
6A, 5A. You're basically required to play as a freshman at like the 1A and 2A level. But at the big school level, it's hard to get on the field sometimes as a freshman or even as a sophomore. Some of the greatest players in Texas high school football history didn't even play till they were juniors, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm always interested in Texas high school football career records, because they say a lot about, like, there's a lot to read into. And there's a lot to kind of digest. So what I did was I took a look at the active career leaders in passing, rushing, and receiving, and I want to see if there's any of these major records that are under threat. So let's start with the passing. So the state's leading career passers in Texas high school football entering the 2022 season, the leader is Cutter Stewart. Cutter Stewart, you may know as the quarterback at Orange Grove. Big headline about 10 days ago was that he was transferring to Alice. He's transferring to Alice for his senior year away from Orange Grove. But he is the only active passer with more than 8,000 career passing yards at 8,122. E.J. Lopez from Andrews is up next, over 7,000. Then you got a bunch of guys in the 6,000 range. Mason Shorb from Leander Rouse, Austin Novosad from Dripping Springs, Cannon Gibson from Wink, and Chris Teton from Dublin. And then down there at 5843, Ashton Dubose at San Antonio Brennan. We mentioned this before. The record right now is 16,108 from Grant Gunnell from Houston St. Pius X.
So we got a ways to go.
That is not under threat, I would say,
Yeah.
presently. Cutter Stewart is not going to throw for 8,000 yards. He's incredible.
These are all seniors.
I believe they're all
right?
seniors, correct.
Yeah, going into their senior year. Correct.
The UIL record, if you're interested, because these are only active UIL 11-man guys, is Hunter Lyle. Hunter Lyle from Booker at 14,408. I also don't think that Cutter Stewart's going to get there, in my humble opinion. I would love to see
if
a guy.
He does, my gosh.
He would be breaking two records.
Yeah.
He'd be breaking the single-season passing record, which I believe is 50. I can look this up real quick. What is the single-season record? The single-season passing record is something along the lines of, I want to say 5,400.
Wasn't that
passing
our
yards 5,600.
out?
Nick Gerber.
Yeah, Nick.
At Levelland.
Yep.
Nick Gerber at Levelland threw for 56-17.
Now at West Texas.
Yeah. That's the record. But even if he were to get to that, he would not be getting to Hunter Lyle. So I would say for now, barring something unforeseen, the career passing yards record is probably not under threat in 2022.
No.
Now, Cutter Stewart could probably get up to 12,000, maybe 13,000 if he has an incredible year. There, and especially if Alice can make a run.
Right.
But
16 would be watching one of the best performances that we've ever seen.
I just think it's not doable.
Right.
Plain simple. I just don't think there's enough snaps out there. So that's passing. I'm gonna move over to rushing. Rushing is home to one of the most untouchable records in Texas high school football history, the Sugarland Express, Kenneth Hall. He's held that record ever since 1953 at 11,232. The only guy who really came close was Jonathan Gray. Jonathan Gray ran for 10,889. If he had basically like 2 more games, he might have been able to get there. But I believe Kenneth Hall also did it in fewer games. Traylon Shedd's the only other guy, by the way, over 10,000 at 10,292 when he did it at Cayuga back in the late 2000s as well. So here are the guys who are the career rushing leaders right now entering the 2022 season. You start with Reuben Owens. Reuben Owens is at 53,008. He is, again, pretty unlikely to catch Kenneth Hall.
Right. He'll definitely make a dent in the number.
He'll make a dent, but like even if he were to, because Kenneth Hall also has the single season rushing record, which is at 4,045 yards. Even if he were to do that, he would not even crack 10,000.
Right.
10,000 is, I mean, really all 3 of those guys played 4 seasons, and I believe Reuben Owens did not play as a freshman, which is kind of hurting.
I need to look at. I would be interested to see what their schedule looked like.
Right. Seth Davis is at 4,215. Surprise, surprise. Katie's got another great running back. L.J. Martin at Canutillo out west is going to get to 4,000, probably to 5,000, probably to 6,000 yards. Marquise Collins up next at College Station, 3,877. Rashawn Sanford at Killian Harker Heights. Next up, Dalton Brooks at Shiner, 3,670, and then Quentin Joyner rounding out to the top, what was that, 7, 8? 7 there of the career rushing yards record.
Dalton will probably have more this year than he did last year because he also doesn't have his brother Doug
Correct.
to take half. And now Doug was more of the big punch it in kind of guy, so he didn't get as many long yards.
I would be interested. You know what? That's a good question. I would be interested to see what the carry split was for those guys. Because the other thing was those guys were not playing. I mean, they weren't necessarily playing the whole game.
Well, Dalton too. I mean, every single one of his touchdowns is like 70 or 80 yards, and it's just one explosive play. Like he doesn't. It's not super like workhorse of trying to get down small yardage.
Right, exactly. So let me look that up, but I'll have to find out. But I would say he will get more of a workload, but they're unlikely to challenge the Sugar Land Express. I think the rushing yards record is pretty comfortably safe once again in 2022. So now let's go to receiving, and this is where things get a little bit interesting. So the career receiving yards record belongs to Marvin Mims, former Mr. Texas Football Player of the Year. He set it with 54.85 there at Frisco Lone Star from 2016 to 2019. The active leader right now is Lonnie Atkinson. Lonnie Atkinson from Corpus Christi Miller is at 33.87. He had a 1,600-yard season last year. If he were to repeat that, he'd be flirting with 5,000. Which is rarefied air in Texas high school football. If you're talking about yards receiving, there are only 3 guys who've ever had 5,000 yards in a career. 6 guys, I should say. In Jordan Shipley, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, Jared Reagan from Booker, who was kind of on the receiving end of a lot of those Hunter Lyle things, and then of course Marvin Mims.
Who is their quarterback right now?
Miller.
Yes.
Great question. They got the same guy though.
They do, yeah, because it was the guy that came. Obviously, Andrew Body played in college last year, so it was the same kid. He was impressive.
He was very good. He stepped in a big way there. Corpus Christi Miller's quarterback is Jaden Brown, just a junior as well. So this is a guy. This Lonnie Atkinson, I think, has an outside shot. He would have to have, there have been. Look, there have been big. So he's what? He's 2,100 yards away from the record. That's been done 7 times, including Coy Aiken was a 2,100-yard receiver last year. So it can be done. Austin Westlake's Jaden Greathouse is up next. Remember, he was the first freshman in Austin Westlake history to ever start. And it shows. He's got 31-34 in the receiving yards. Alonzo Mcgregor was a name I was not familiar with. Deuce McGregor out there at Tyler Chapel Hill, but he has been spectacular. 2,575 receiving yards entering his senior season. A guy certainly to keep an eye on there out in East Texas.
He's one of the many weapons on that Chapel Hill team.
Yeah, he is a
like to
a
have
name
that
to know.
number with the other amount of weapons that they have on that team is really impressive.
Right, exactly. But they call him Deuce. Deuce McGregor was a guy I didn't know a ton about, but he is a really, really impressive playmaker out there. Rohan Fluellen, we got to know last year, has been exceptional at Gilmer. He's at 23.85. Lewis Williams III at Conroe is at 22.60. And now I want to skip down to the bottom of Curtis Murillo there at El Paso East, which is at 15.50, rounding out the top 7. But I want to focus on this guy in 6th, Jayden Porter. So Jayden Porter's at 21.55. Why am I identifying him? That's because Jayden Porter's entering his junior season.
Yep.
Everyone else on this list is going to be a senior. Jayden Porter's going to be a junior. So you're talking about a guy that has 2 seasons He's already off to a fantastic start, but he's got 2 seasons to get a grand total of 3330 receiving yards. So a little more than 1,700. If he were to average 1,700 yards a season, he would be pretty much cooking with Crisco, and he would be there.
And considering that we think that Lorena will probably go pretty far in the playoffs, that just lends to more games to be able to make that happen.
Right. So this is a guy to keep an eye on. Jayden Porter is the one that I think, I think there's 2 guys, maybe 3 if you want to lump in Jaden Greathouse, who have an opportunity to get close to Marvin Mims' 54-85. Lonnie Atkinson could do it this year if he has a big year, and especially if Miller can make a deep playoff run. We know Wesley's going to make a deep playoff run. The only question is going to be how often they throw the ball to Greathouse, because he's going to get double covered, triple covered every time.
With a new quarterback.
Jayden Porter is the guy that I'm identifying as maybe the guy that could do it, simply because he's got 2 years left to do it, and he's already off to a great start. So there you go, chasing milestones there, the most career receiving yards. To kind of round it out, I would say passing yards, almost certainly not. Rushing yards, almost certainly not. Receiving yards, maybe this year, and really maybe next year, we could be talking about the receiving yards record falling down in Texas high school football. So you can find all the records at texasfootball.com/records. Hey, thanks for watching this clip here on YouTube. If you like this kind of stuff and you want more of it, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And remember, you can watch us live every weekday at noon at texasfootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, or here on YouTube. And if you want more of the best coverage of football in the state of Texas, check out texasfootball.com and become a Dave Campbell's Texas Football Insider at texasfootball.com/subscribe.